My parents threw a lavish birthday party for my sister, but they didn't invite me. Instead, they called me over to clean up after the party like I was some maid. My sister even handed me $200 and said, "Make sure it's spotless. If you do a good job, I'll tip you." So I did exactly what she asked. I cleaned everything up. My parents nearly lost their minds when they returned and saw the results. But right then, a luxury Mercedes pulled up in front of the house. The person who stepped out changed everything. And that was just the beginning of the storm about to hit. Stick around because I'll tell you what happened that day. How I finally stood up and fought back against my toxic family. Hello everyone, my name is Hannah and I'm 30 years old. I'm the owner of the Winterford, a high-end fine dining restaurant located in downtown Chicago. We serve a 12-course tasting menu priced at $300 per guest and only take up to 50 guests each evening. I also own Lakewood Haven, a luxury boutique resort about a 30-minute drive from downtown Chicago. Tucked away in a lush wooded area with the vast waters of Lake Michigan stretching behind it, Lakewood Haven features 25 private villas designed for elite guests seeking privacy and elegance. I'm living the most peaceful and fulfilling chapter of my life. Every morning, I wake up without the anxiety of hostile calls or toxic messages from my family. Ever since the court issued a restraining order against my parents and my sister a month ago, my story took place 4 months ago. It was a Sunday in mid-March. I was enjoying a quiet weekend at home when my dad called me at 1:15 p.m. I was surprised to see his name on my phone since he rarely calls me. And honestly, even though I live less than 30 minutes away, I've only seen my family maybe 3 times a year for the past 7 years, on Dad's birthday, Mom's birthday, and at Christmas dinner. As soon as I picked up, without so much as a greeting, he barked into the phone, "Get home, I need you now." His voice sounded tense and irritated. I hesitated momentarily, then cautiously asked, "Is something wrong?" Without missing a beat, he snapped, "Yes." And just like that, he hung up. Hearing the dial tone, I felt a wave of frustration mixed with anxiety. Truth be told, I didn't want to go. I've always been a disappointment in my parents' eyes, the daughter who could never measure up to my perfect sister, Harper. But the way my dad said he needed me, I figured something serious must have happened. I didn't think too long about it. I grabbed my coat, got in the car, and headed to my parents' house, wondering what on earth was so urgent. I drove down those familiar roads, not realizing I had become the punchline of my family's latest joke. Just minutes later, after nearly a 30-minute drive, I finally pulled up in front of their house. I stopped at the gate and noticed a crowd of cars parked outside, everything from old sedans to a few SUVs. Right away, I figured they were throwing a party. After finding a parking spot, I hurried into the yard and was surprised to see many relatives there. They were having an outdoor party with tables and chairs neatly arranged and a big banner that read, "Happy birthday, Harper." That's when it hit me. They were throwing a birthday party for my sister, Harper. Seeing it all laid out before me, I felt shocked. A few relatives noticed me and called out a greeting. Among them was Uncle Mike, my dad's younger brother, a bald man with a look in his eyes that always seemed calculating. When he saw me, he stepped forward with a smirk full of spite and said, "Just got here? Have they promoted you to head of the dishwashing team yet?" Some of the relatives around burst into laughter, mocking, sneering laughter. Then Nolan, Mike's 25-year-old son, roared, "Nah, Hannah's got to be the director of dishwashing." I didn't respond. My throat tightened, and I stood frozen, humiliated by their words. Mike and his son were part of the reason behind the years of tension and misunderstandings within my family. As I started to head toward the house to look for my dad, he walked out with my mom and Harper. The moment he saw me, he didn't ask how I was. Instead, he turned to the relatives and chirped, "We've got someone to clean up. Let's go." I stood there, stunned. That one sentence made everything click. The urgent phone call, the command to come home, it was never about needing help. It was about using me. Before I could say a word, he walked right up to me. His tone cold and commanding, "Clean this place up before we get back." That was it. I lost it. My heart pounded in my chest and the rage rose inside me. My voice trembled as I asked, "What the hell are you talking about?" He stared me down with ice-cold eyes and said, "Isn't cleaning up after a party and making everything spotless your job now?" Right after that, Harper, with that smug, arrogant look, pulled out $200, handed it to me, and said with disdain, "Clean it all up. That's your pay. If you do a good job, I'll tip you." Hearing their words and seeing her hand me money like I was some stranger off the street, I realized this whole thing had been planned, a setup to humiliate me. They decided on this long before I ever showed up. I swallowed hard, holding it together while my mind spun from the betrayal. Never one to miss a chance to pile on, Uncle Mike jumped in with a mocking tone. $200 is too much. Don't mess it up, Hannah. That was it, I snapped. I turned toward Mike and shouted, "Shut up, Mike!" Right away, my dad shouted back, voice booming with authority, "That's enough, Hannah. He's your uncle. Don't you dare talk to him like that." The crowd fell silent. The laughter stopped. Some people shook their heads. Others leaned in to whisper. I could feel the judgment in their eyes. Some looked at me with pity, others with contempt. Feeling crushed by their cruelty, I turned to my mom, the one I thought might stand up for me. Clinging to the last shred of hope, I said, "Mom, say something." But she took their side too. She looked at me, her face full of disappointment, and said, "This is what you get for going against us." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I felt frozen, like I was standing in the middle of an intersection, surrounded by roads that all led nowhere. Then she turned and walked away, followed by the rest of the relatives who had come for Harper's party. From the murmurs around me, I overheard that after the party, they were heading to a bar nearby to keep the celebration going. And that was when I finally understood the meaning of the word loneliness. After they left, I sat on the front steps and stared at the pile of dishes before me. Their cruel words still echoed in my head. And it all brought me back to 7 years ago, right here in the same house, when they threw the most insulting accusations at me. 7 years ago, after spending a year working as a tech engineer making $70,000 a year, I quit my job. Back then, I owned nearly 3,000 Bitcoins. My fascination with technology started in 2012 when I was just 16. I'd learned about Bitcoin and used money I'd saved from a part-time job at a bakery to buy them. They were dirt cheap at the time, just a few dollars each. By 2014, when I started college, Bitcoin had skyrocketed, hitting nearly $1,000 per coin. Financial investors were calling it a frenzy, and people in the tech world saw it as the next global currency. With my background in tech, a few friends and I began mining it ourselves, and as it turned out, I'd made the right call. Throughout all 4 years of college, we didn't need student loans. We covered our living expenses through Bitcoin mining. In 2018, when Bitcoin hit $11,000, I sold off 1,000 coins. With nearly $11 million in hand, I chose a different path. Despite my degree in technology, I didn't launch a tech startup. I wanted to open a luxury restaurant, and that decision was the turning point. The moment my relationship with my family fell off a cliff, I made a bold move to gain real experience in running a restaurant. I applied for a job as a server at a high-end restaurant in Chicago. I wanted to learn everything from the ground up. I didn't tell anyone in my family about quitting my job or the $11 million I now had. I worked the floor as a server daily, taking orders, clearing tables, and cleaning up after meals. That first month went smoothly, but everything changed in the second month when my family found out. That day, my dad, Caleb, my mom, Camila, Uncle Mike, and a few other relatives came to the restaurant to celebrate Uncle Mike's birthday. I recognized them when they walked in, and they saw me too. The look they gave me made my stomach drop. My hands started to shake, and my heart pounded so hard it felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. They walked toward me, and Uncle Mike was the first to speak. He turned to my dad and said mockingly, "Caleb, didn't you say Hannah was working as a tech engineer making 70 grand a year? Why is she busting tables here?" My dad didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, eyes filled with anger and disappointment. My mom turned her face away, refusing to look at me. A few seconds later, my dad finally spoke, cold and sharp. "Come home tonight. We need to talk." Then they all left the restaurant without saying anything. They didn't even look back. That entire afternoon, I couldn't focus on anything. I already knew. My dad's anger awaited me when I walked through that front door. That night after my shift, I saw my dad, just like he asked. When I walked into the familiar living room, they were all already there. Dad sitting like a judge in his usual chair, Mom beside him with a sorrowful look, and Harper leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. The moment I stepped in, my dad exploded. He stood up, face red with rage, pointed straight at me, and shouted, "You are a disgrace to this family. You humiliated me in front of our relatives." I tried to explain, my voice shaking. "Dad, it's not what you think. I have a plan." But he cut me off with more fury. "What plan? You quit a $70,000 engineering job to wait tables. Do you have any idea how ashamed I felt?" Then Mom jumped in, her voice full of disappointment. "Why would you do this? What did we teach you for you to stoop so low?" I couldn't take their insults anymore. I stood up and shouted, "I'm opening a restaurant." The whole room went silent. A few seconds later, Dad burst into harsh, mocking laughter. He said, "What? You expect me to believe that?" That's when Harper chimed in, her tone smug and superior. "Do you even know how much it costs to open a restaurant? Stop dreaming." Mom nodded in agreement, shaking her head with a heavy sigh. "Daughter, stop fooling yourself. Be realistic." Looking straight at Harper's arrogant face, I said loud and clear, "I have $11 million. Is that enough?" At the sound of 11 million, Harper let out a loud laugh, like I'd just told the funniest joke in the world. Then she said, "If you had $11 million, you wouldn't be wiping tables for a living." Their mocking laughter filled the room. I wanted to pull out my phone and show them my account, proving I wasn't lying. My hand was already unlocking the screen. But then my dad spoke, and his words crushed me. He looked at me with eyes like ice and said, "I can't believe you've added lying to your list of failures." Hearing him call me a liar felt like someone had driven a knife straight through my chest. Looking around, I saw the disbelief on their faces, the sneers, the doubt. No one believed me, not one. So I didn't show them anything. I put the phone down, stood up, and remained calm. I said goodbye, then walked out the door. And that was the reason I'd only gone home 3 times a year for the past 7 years. Every visit, I quietly left my gift on the coffee table and walked away without saying a word. I never told them what I'd achieved. And honestly, I'm grateful I kept it that way all these years. Let's go back to Harper's birthday party 4 months ago. After sitting there for a while, lost in memories of everything that had happened over the years, I was ready to stand up, walk away, and never return to that house again. But then Harper's words echoed in my head. That line, "Make sure it's spotless. That's your pay. If you do a good job, I'll tip you." And just like that, I had a rather interesting idea. She told me to clean everything, so I did, literally. In that moment, a twisted smile crept across my face. I figured it was time for Harper to learn about being careful with her words. Without wasting another second, I pulled out my phone and called Marcus, the general manager at my restaurant. In a calm voice, I said, "Marcus, I need 3 staff members at this address right away. We've got an urgent job." 30 minutes later, 3 of my restaurant employees showed up, all in uniform, fully equipped with professional cleaning supplies. I instructed them to collect every plate, bowl, knife, and fork from the party and pack them into large trash bags. Then we dumped it all into the outdoor garbage bins. But we weren't done. Every stained tablecloth was also tossed out. And my dad, he had spent years collecting the oakwood tables and chairs, his prized possessions. I had the staff spray them down with water and scrub them thoroughly with soap, just like we do stainless steel prep tables at the restaurant. Then they headed into the kitchen to keep going. The microwave? Rinsed out thoroughly inside and out. The electric stove? Soaked, disassembled, and scrubbed until it shone. I even had them wipe down every kitchen cabinet and clean every corner. We had cleaned everything exactly as Harper requested in less than an hour. And as I looked over the spotless aftermath, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. All I could think about was her promised tip and the stunned look I knew I'd see on my parents' faces when they walked through that door. After helping me clean everything up, the 3 staff members returned to the restaurant and resumed their regular shifts. As for me, I walked into the living room, turned on the TV, and waited for them to come home. Around 4:00 p.m., I heard a car engine outside. I quickly got up and walked to the front door to greet them. I couldn't hide the eager smile on my face when they saw the freshly cleaned space. Mike spoke up again with that same condescending tone. "Well, well, the director of sanitation delivers again. Quick, thorough, and sparkling clean." I let out a loud laugh, a genuine one this time. Then I walked over to Harper and, in a tone as cheerful as a kid proudly finishing a chore, I said, "Everything's spotless, just the way you asked. So, where's my tip?" I made sure to emphasize the word spotless. A few of the relatives chuckled mockingly at my comment. Some jokingly suggested Harper give me an extra $10. Others shouted, "20." Uncle Steve even yelled, That kind of job deserves at least 200, caught up in the show. Harper smugly pulled out another $200 and handed it to me with a fake sweet smile. Nice work, she said in a syrupy voice. Holding those two crisp $100 bills in my hand, I felt a strange wave of satisfaction. But that moment didn't last long. My dad suddenly walked over to the area where the tables had been set up. When he saw what had happened, he screamed, horrified, "What did you do to my oak table?" His face was twisted in rage. I answered innocently, "Just washed it with water and soap, to get it nice and clean." His eyes widened in fury. "You soaked an oak table? Do you have any idea what that wood is? That's solid oak." Not even 30 seconds later, my mom burst out of the kitchen, hair disheveled, her voice shrill and panicked. "What did you do to my microwave and electric stove?" Without flinching, I answered calmly. "Soaked them and scrubbed them. It's the only way to get them clean." She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Then, trembling, she shouted, "Where are the dishes? The tablecloths?" I didn't make her wait. I pointed straight to the garbage bins out front and said proudly, "All taken care of, just like Harper asked. Everything's spotless." My mom let out a near scream and bolted outside. Moments later, I heard her shrieking, "Oh my God, my fine china, my dishes, they're all broken." She came storming back into the house, face red and eyes blazing, and yelled at me, "You're paying for all of it." At that, I smiled, a slow, meaningful smile. Then I turned to Harper and said in a calm voice, "You pay? I did exactly what you asked." Harper looked like she was about to explode. Her face had gone pale, and through clenched teeth, she growled, "I never told you to do that." I replied smoothly, "Check the cameras. You told me to clean everything." Harper started to stammer, pointing a shaky finger at me. You did this on purpose." Watching the rage on their faces, I honestly felt victorious. I was savoring every second of it. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that a stranger had just arrived. And that stranger was about to show them exactly who I was. Just as I enjoyed the quiet satisfaction of teaching them a lesson, a sleek black Mercedes-Benz S-Class pulled up in front of the house. The soft hum of the engine and the car's luxurious presence instantly drew everyone's attention. All eyes turned toward it. Harper quickly adjusted her hair, smoothed her blouse, and proudly announced, "That's my boss. He's here to drop off my birthday gift. He couldn't make it earlier today." As she flaunted the connection, the crowd responded with admiration. Mike nodded approvingly and roared, "Harp's boss has real class." My mother whispered, "With a car like that, he must be someone important." Everyone began to gather closer, craning their necks with curiosity. Less than a minute later, the car door opened, and the man who stepped out caught me off guard for a second. It was Charles Wellington, the head of human resources at the resort I had purchased just a month ago. He was 45, with salt and pepper hair, always impeccably dressed in tailored suits. I had just met with him briefly to discuss restructuring plans. That was the moment I realized Harper worked at my resort. When she saw him leave the car, she rushed forward, beaming with delight, and held out her hand politely. "Mr. Charles, I'm so glad you could make it to my party." But Charles ignored her outstretched hand completely. He walked past her briskly, purposefully, eyes locked only on me. Confused, everyone followed behind him, trying to figure out what was happening. After a few steps, Charles stopped before me and respectfully extended his hand. "Good afternoon, Ms. Hannah," he said. I shook his hand and replied calmly, "Good to see you, Charles. I didn't expect you here." Still looking around, Charles asked curiously, "Are you here for Miss Harper's party too?" At that question, the entire family froze. Harper, my parents, and every relative standing nearby looked utterly stunned. They didn't understand what was happening. Why Harper's boss was speaking to me with such respect. My dad furrowed his brows and muttered, "Why does he know Hannah?" My mom just stared, mouth open. Mike glanced at me, confused, and mumbled, "Something's not right here." Harper quickly stepped in, trying to clarify things. "Mr. Charles, this is my younger sister. She's just—" But Charles raised a hand, cutting her off mid-sentence, which rattled her. After a few seconds of silence, I replied to Charles in a casual tone, "No. Harper asked me to come clean up after the party." Charles's face twisted in disbelief. "You're serious?" he asked, almost shouting. He glanced around the room, then back at me, utterly stunned. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that his employer, who now owned Lakewood Haven, had been summoned to clean up trash. I chuckled, then replied, "I'm not joking. She even paid me $200 and tipped me another $200. Look." I held out 4 $100 bills for him to see. Charles stared at the money, speechless. Then he sighed. A few seconds later, he turned sharply to Harper, voice stern and demanding. "Do you even know who this is?" Harper's eyes widened. She shook her head slowly and stammered, I don't understand what you mean." Charles looked straight at her and said with full authority, "She's the new owner of Lakewood Haven, the place where you and I both work." Harper's face drained of all color. She stumbled over her words. No way. She's just a server." Meanwhile, my dad stood frozen in place, eyes wide. My mom covered her mouth, unable to say a word. Mike backed up a few steps, face flushed red, no doubt replaying all the mocking things he'd said to me earlier. Nolan stood beside him, pale and silent, avoiding my gaze. The relatives started whispering among themselves. "Did he say owner? That can't be right. Hannah, really? There's no way. This has to be a mistake." Not wanting things to drag on, I turned to Charles and said, "I'll see you tomorrow at the office." Charles nodded respectfully. "Yes, Ms. Hannah, I'll be there on time." I turned and calmly walked toward the gate. Before stepping out, I glanced back and said, loud and clear, "Almost forgot. I'm also the owner of the Winterford, the fine dining restaurant downtown." Then I walked straight to my car, started the engine, and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw them still standing there, stiff as statues, not a word coming from any of them. Charles walked back to his car, shaking his head as he went. And honestly, after Charles revealed the truth, I sank into a deep, delicious sense of satisfaction, one I had waited years to feel. I blasted music through the speakers the entire drive home from my parents' house. Now and then I nodded to the beat, even sang along. There was this overwhelming feeling of freedom, of satisfaction pouring through me. Before heading home, I stopped by the restaurant to find the 3 staff members who had helped me clean up the party earlier that day. I pulled out $400 in cash and handed it to them. They stared at me, clearly surprised. I grinned and chirped, "Tip from the host." Marcus, my restaurant manager, gave me a puzzled look and asked quietly, "Boss, what happened back there?" I smiled, shrugged, and replied, "Just a memorable day, that's all." Then I left them behind, still chatting about the unexpected bonus. That night, my phone didn't stop buzzing. It rang like an alarm. First, it was my dad's number, then my mom's, then Harper's. After nearly 10 missed calls, the texts started pouring in. I skimmed through them. Dad wrote, "I'm sorry for misunderstanding you, sweetheart." Mom's message was syrupy sweet. "My dear girl, come home for dinner tomorrow. I'll cook all your favorite dishes." And Harper, hers read, "I'm so proud of you, little sister. I always knew you were special. Can we talk?" Then came the texts from the relatives, dozens of them. Apologies, regret, excuses. Most of them said they were sorry for how they treated me, how they'd misunderstood. But I only smiled to myself, because deep down I knew those weren't apologies born from genuine remorse. They were reactions to money. They saw I had wealth and thought I was worth staying close to. That night I turned off my phone and went to bed early. And for the first time in 7 years, after all the rejection, the judgment, the mockery, I slept peacefully. The next morning at 9:00, as promised, Charles arrived at my office at Lakewood Haven. He entered with a more formal expression than usual, carrying a thick folder under his arm. We sat across from each other at the large oak desk, and he began his report, a detailed breakdown of the resort's operations and the projected business outlook for the upcoming week. The meeting lasted close to an hour. As I started to stand, Charles hesitated, then asked, "Should we let Harper go?" I was genuinely surprised by the question. I hadn't expected Charles to think I would bring personal grudges into a professional environment. After a moment of thought, I answered calmly, "You've got me wrong. I'm not petty enough to drag personal matters into business. If Harper's doing her job well, let her stay. If she's underperforming, follow protocol and let her go like anyone else." Charles looked taken aback at first. Then he nodded slowly, his eyes showing a more profound sense of respect. "I understand," he said. After a polite goodbye, he left the office to return to his duties. I remained seated for a while, gazing out the window at the vast stretch of Lake Michigan. A sense of peace settled over me. I knew I'd made the right call. One of my core principles is never letting personal resentment interfere with business decisions. If Harper performs well, she'll receive the same opportunities and recognition as everyone else. If not, she'll face the same consequences. That's how it should be. As for Harper, I honestly thought that after everything that had happened, she'd be more grounded. But I was wrong. From the moment she found out I was the owner of the resort where she worked, her attitude shifted. She started walking around like she owned the place, bragging to everyone that she was my sister. She used my name as leverage, bullied junior staff, and crossed lines that no professional should. According to Charles's reports, she frequently showed up late, left early, and treated her coworkers with open disrespect. When Charles tried to hold her accountable, she didn't just ignore him. She threatened him. She told him I'd fire him if he dared to discipline her. So Charles followed protocol and terminated her as outlined in my established policy. After she was fired, she came crying to my office, begging for another chance. But it was too late. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to backtrack. Predictably, my parents took her side. They started calling me nonstop, and when I didn't pick up, they showed up at the resort that same morning, Harper in tow. The meeting in my office was tense from the moment they walked in. My dad came in looking stern and said flatly, "You can't fire Harper." My mom immediately followed, her tone pleading. "She's your sister. Family helps each other." Harper sat beside them, trying to look remorseful, her voice shaky. "I know I messed up. I'll change. Just give me one more chance." But I didn't budge. I looked them all in the eye and said firmly, "The decision's made. I won't change it." That's when my dad's tone turned sharp, almost commanding. "This is unacceptable. You should make Harper the CFO. It fits her qualifications." My mom nodded and added, "Or at least give her some shares in the business. We're family after all." I couldn't listen to another second of it. I stood up, voice steady and final. "This is a business decision, not a family matter. I'm not doing it." Then I asked them to leave my office, or I'd have security escort them out. Before walking out, my dad turned back, stared me down coldly, and said, "You wouldn't be where you are today without us." And then he walked out, not looking back. My mom and Harper followed quietly behind, leaving me alone in the room. His words dragged up old memories, years of favoritism, of always being second to Harper under that same roof. And now I knew one thing with certainty. No one gets to walk into my life and pull the strings anymore. After everything that's happened, it's clear. Cutting ties with them isn't just inevitable, it's necessary. After they left, the real storm in my life began. 2 days after Harper was terminated, she posted a 15-minute video in a Facebook group called Family Drama Stories, a public group with over 50,000 members, known for sharing messy family conflicts. And in that video, she called me out by name. With red, teary eyes and a trembling voice, she painted me as an ungrateful monster. She claimed that I had gotten rich and then heartlessly fired my sister from the company. She said I'd abandoned our elderly parents and turned my back on family. But she didn't stop there. She flat out lied about my businesses. In the video, she said, "The Winterford serves old, low-quality food, and Lakewood Haven, it scams customers with fake amenities. I used to work there. I know the truth." The comment section exploded. People who didn't know a thing about me or the truth flooded the post with hate. Brothers like this don't deserve money. Boycott her restaurant and resort. Ungrateful people shouldn't succeed. Within an hour, 25% of the Winterford and Lakewood Haven reservations were canceled, resulting in tens of thousands of dollars in immediate losses. Marcus, my restaurant manager, couldn't keep up with the phone ringing nonstop from people backing out. I sat in my office watching the damage unfold, reading every false claim, every angry comment, every lost customer. And in that moment, I made myself a promise. This time, I'm not turning the other cheek. This time, Harper will learn exactly what happens when you try to burn down what I've built. After receiving the preliminary damage report from the business team, I immediately called Jordan Mitchell, my legal representative. He arrived at my office later that same morning. Jordan, 38, is a seasoned attorney with over 15 years of experience handling civil litigation and defamation cases. He walked in carrying a sleek black leather briefcase, his expression serious and focused. We sat across from each other in the meeting room. I laid out everything for him, the full context, the video Harper had posted, screenshots of the hateful comments, and a detailed breakdown of the financial losses. Once all the files were in order, I gave Jordan complete authority to pursue the case in court. He nodded firmly and said, "This is a textbook case of defamation and business reputation damage. We have more than enough to win." Working with precision, Jordan coordinated with the police that very afternoon and filed a civil lawsuit with the county court. He also requested an emergency injunction to force Harper to remove the video and cease all defamatory activity immediately. Later that day, I received an email from Jordan confirming everything was underway. His message read, "The suit has been filed. The court will process it within 48 hours. Reading that email, I felt something shift inside me. At that moment, I knew I had no father, no mother, no sister anymore. After Jordan left, I contacted our tech team. I instructed them to retrieve the security camera footage from 2 days prior, the day my parents and Harper barged into my office demanding special treatment. The footage clearly showed the entire conversation, their entitled behavior, Harper's manipulative tears, my father's demands, and the moment I told them no. The edited clip, complete with subtitles and sharp production, was handed over to the media department. They posted it across all major social platforms under the title, "The Truth Behind the Hanna Family Scandal, What the Security Cameras Reveal." Within an hour, the video was spreading like wildfire across online communities. I spent an additional $10,000 on sponsored placements with major online news outlets to reinforce the message. Each article included official clarification and clearly stated that legal action was being taken and financial damages would be pursued. And just as we anticipated, public opinion split. One side stood behind me, saying Harper had crossed the line. The other still clung to her narrative. But I wasn't silent. For the first time in a long time, I stood up for myself, publicly. On the third day, after Jordan filed the civil lawsuit and the court officially accepted the case, my phone started ringing nonstop all morning. It was my parents and Harper. I didn't answer. Instead, I blocked every contact form from them, phone numbers, emails, and social media accounts. I even gave direct instructions to the front desks at both the restaurant and the resort. Do not admit any member of my family under any circumstances. That evening, Jordan messaged me a Facebook link with a short note. Watch her latest video. Looks like they're panicking. I clicked the link. It was an 8-minute video Harper had just posted. She sat in her bedroom, her eyes swollen, hair messy, voice trembling as she said, "I want to apologize to the public, especially to my sister Hannah. I lied about her." In the video, she admitted she had fabricated stories about the quality of the restaurant and resort. She said none of what she claimed was true. She pleaded for forgiveness from the online community, and most of all, from me. But watching her, I knew exactly what had happened. She had spoken to a lawyer, and after seeing what kind of legal consequences she faced, her attorney likely advised her to issue a public apology to mitigate potential penalties. Too bad it came far too late. I had already made my decision. The damage was done, and no apology, no matter how teary or public, could undo the financial losses or the character assassination. After the video ended, I replied to Jordan's message with a simple instruction. Proceed as planned, no settlements. Harper may have thought it was over when she posted that apology, but for me, that was only the beginning. What came next wouldn't just change her life, it would change everything. 1 month ago, the civil trial occurred at the Cook County Courthouse. I sat alone on the plaintiff's bench that day, wearing a sharp navy suit. Across the courtroom sat the defendants, Harper, my parents, and a few relatives. Every so often, they glanced at me with anxious expressions, whispering. Harper looked drained, with a pale face and swollen eyes. My parents kept their heads down, avoiding eye contact. Uncle Mike and a few others shook their heads repeatedly, as if trying to talk Harper out of something. After nearly 3 hours of courtroom arguments, backed by irrefutable evidence of the damage Harper had caused, Jordan presented our case flawlessly. We won decisively. The judge, a stern-looking man in his 60s with silver hair, delivered the verdict firmly. Harper Miller is ordered to pay restitution of $42,000 for direct losses caused by canceled services. This figure is based on verified records of canceled bookings from her defamatory video. Additionally, she will pay $15,000 for reputational damage due to false statements. Ms. Miller will also cover legal fees and court costs for both parties. She has 60 days to comply with this ruling. Harper nearly collapsed at the announcement. Uncle Mike and another relative had to help her out of the courtroom. My mother looked hollow, staggering like she had no sense of direction. My father sat with his head in his hands, completely speechless. As I was leaving, a few relatives intercepted me in the hallway. Aunt Linda, my mother's younger sister, stepped toward me, pleading, "Hannah, that amount is too much. Harper doesn't have that kind of money." Uncle Steve nodded in agreement, adding, "Yeah, $57,000 plus attorney fees. That's close to 70 grand. She can't pay that." I looked at them coldly and replied, "Then all of you can chip in and pay it for her. Weren't you cheering her on when she posted that video?" Silence. One by one, they walked away, not a single word more. Then came my parents and Harper. Harper, eyes filled with tears, begged, "Little sister, I know I messed up. Please don't make me pay. I don't have the money." My mother jumped in, her voice shaking. "We're family. Harper is your sister. You can't be this cruel." At the word family, I turned back, face burning with everything I had held in for years. I shouted, "Shut up, Mom. What kind of family tries to destroy their own daughter's career?" And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them behind in total silence. That was the moment our blood ties were cut permanently. It's been a month since the trial. I'm living the most peaceful and meaningful days of my life. Every morning, I wake up in a quiet house, sip my coffee, and look at the view from my porch. No more hostile calls, no more hateful texts, no more pressure from family, just freedom. Complete, unfiltered freedom. It's been 30 days, and I haven't received the court-ordered compensation yet, but Harper is still within her 60-day payment window. Once that deadline passes, if she still hasn't paid, I'll move forward with asset seizure. Jordan has already prepared all the necessary legal filings. Following the trial, Jordan also requested a restraining order, which the court approved. They are now legally prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me. No calls, no texts, no emails, nothing. The order is valid for 3 years. Any violation could lead to immediate arrest. Holding that court order in my hands, stamped in red with full authority, I felt something lift off my shoulders, a weight I had carried for years, and I knew without a doubt I'd been right to keep my financial life quiet all this time. If I had told them from the beginning how much money I had, maybe they would have treated me differently. But I never would have seen their true colors. I never would have known their love was conditional. Now I do. Now I see clearly who stands by me. My staff at the restaurant and resort, my real friends, the loyal customers who kept believing in me. They are the ones I consider true family. I'm not telling this story to brag about success. I'm sharing it because I want to leave you with something important. And don't let people know what you have too soon. If you can live honestly, live. That's when you'll truly see who's real and who's not. Money can change how people look at you, but it will never change who they are underneath. This is where my story ends. I've never once regretted the choices I made. Every step, every decision, it was all necessary. It was all right. People I've told this story to often fall into two groups. One says I did the right thing, that I protected myself. The other says I went too far and was harsh with my family. What do you think? Was I right to follow through with the lawsuit? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it. Someone out there might need to hear this. Thanks for being here. See you in the next story.